The restaurant shimmered with elegance, pink balloons floated near the ceiling, golden streamers curled around polished columns, and a lavish birthday cake waited patiently at the center of a long, decorated table. In the middle of it all sat Clara, an 8-year-old girl with soft brown curls and eyes that no longer sparkled like they used to. She sat in a wheelchair, motionless, watching the candles on her untouched cake flicker as if they too were waiting for something, someone. Clara was the daughter of one of the city's most powerful CEOs. He had spared no expense to make her birthday perfect. The best venue, the most exquisite cake, custom invitations sent weeks in advance, everything was meticulously planned by his assistants. But for all the money spent, something priceless was missing. No friends came. Not a single child walked through the door. The staff tiptoed around awkwardly, whispering among themselves. Clara's gaze remained locked on the cake, but her mind was far away. This wasn't her first lonely birthday since the accident that left her paralyzed. School friends had slowly faded after she couldn't run or play anymore. Their absence today wasn't just disappointing, it was a quiet confirmation of a deeper isolation. She didn't cry. She didn't even frown. She simply waited, out of habit more than hope, for someone to show up. The music played softly in the background, mocking the silence around her table. The candles burned low, the frosting glistened, and the empty chairs looked like ghosts of friendships past. Outside her world of quiet pain, the city continued to rush by. But in that luxury restaurant, beneath the shimmer and polish, a little girl sat alone on her birthday, surrounded by beauty, but starved for connection. In the same grand restaurant, tucked into a quiet corner away from the main event, sat James, a single father with kind eyes and a well-worn jacket. Across from him was his son, Leo, a curious 7-year-old with a soft voice and an even softer heart. Their table was simple, their dinner modest. They hadn't come for any celebration, just a small treat after a long week. As Leo slurped his soda, his gaze drifted across the room. He spotted the girl, Clara, sitting alone at her extravagant table, her candles still glowing faintly, untouched. His brow furrowed. "Dad," he whispered, tugging gently at James's sleeve. "Why is that girl alone? Isn't it her birthday?" James looked over, following his son's eyes. He saw the pink decorations, the untouched cake, the party favors lined up like soldiers, yet no laughter, no friends. Just a little girl in a wheelchair, staring at her own celebration like a guest, not the center of it. He didn't know who she was, or why no one had come. But he knew what loneliness felt like. He remembered birthdays with no guests, long silences after his wife passed, and how Leo once said, "It's okay, Daddy. We'll just celebrate with each other." James glanced back at Leo, then at Clara. Sometimes, he thought, kindness doesn't need an invitation. He stood up slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans, heart pounding just a little. Leo grabbed his hand. Together, they crossed the invisible line between stranger and something more. Toward a lonely table. Toward a girl who had given up hoping. James didn't have the right words, but he had something better. He walked up to Clara and asked, gently, "Can we join you?" James approached with calm humility, his voice soft and warm. "Hi," he said, kneeling beside Clara's wheelchair. "Can we join you?" For a moment, she didn't respond, just stared at him, her wide eyes unsure if he was real. No one had spoken to her like that all evening. No one had asked to be with her. Then, almost imperceptibly, Clara nodded. Leo smiled brightly, hopping into the seat beside her without hesitation. He reached into the centerpiece and pulled out a helium balloon, gently tying it to the armrest of her chair. "This one's yours," he said, beaming. Clara blinked, then let out the smallest laugh. And just like that, something shifted. James took a seat across from them, picking up a party horn and giving it a playful toot. Leo giggled. Clara did too. The awkward silence around the table melted like ice in sunlight. Soon, napkins turned into paper hats, the untouched cake was finally sliced, and laughter echoed from a table that moments ago had felt more like a museum display than a birthday party. Clara even offered Leo the first piece of cake. "Only if we sing together," he said. So, they did, off-key, a bit too loud, but with more heart than any choir. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt like just a kid again. Not the girl in the chair. Not the CEO's daughter. Just Clara. What began as a birthday no one came to, bloomed into a memory that would outshine any gift, any guest list, any plan. In a room full of strangers, one small act of kindness had filled the emptiness with magic. The table wasn't full of people, but it was overflowing with joy. Just beyond the main room, separated by sleek glass walls and the steady hum of ambition, Clara's father paced with a phone pressed tightly to his ear. Another deal. Another investor. Another call marked urgent. That was his world, structured, powerful, always in motion. He trusted that everything else, including today's birthday party, had been taken care of by his team. But something caught his eye. Through the glass, he saw movement, not from staff, but from Clara. Her shoulders shook slightly. Was she crying? He leaned in, no. She was laughing. Laughing. He paused mid-sentence, the voice on the other end still talking, fading into meaningless sound. For the first time in months, Clara's face was bright with joy. Her hands clumsily lifted a fork full of cake. Beside her, a boy was making her giggle with silly faces, and a man, clearly not a guest, was cheering her on like an old friend. The CEO's phone slipped from his ear. He stood frozen, the world around him blurring, while one truth came into sharp focus: he hadn't seen that smile in ages. Not since before the accident. Not since before business trips had become his default response to pain he didn't know how to fix. It wasn't the grandeur of the party that lit her up. Not the cake, the decor, or the expensive effort. It was them, the boy and his father. Two strangers who gave her what he hadn't: presence, warmth, attention. In that moment, the balance sheet of his life tilted. The meetings, the mergers, the millions, all suddenly felt smaller than the joy on his daughter's face. He had almost lost what mattered most. And somehow, through the kindness of strangers, he was being given a second chance to see it. The light outside had softened into gold, casting a warm glow over the restaurant. The once-forgotten table now buzzed with life. Frosting-stained napkins, crumpled party hats, and giggles filled the space like music. Clara, cheeks flushed with joy, looked at the cake that had waited patiently all day. She turned to James, her voice barely above a whisper. "Will you light the candles?" James nodded, his hands a little shaky, not from nerves, but from the quiet weight of the moment. He struck a match, and one by one, the 12 little flames danced to life. The room seemed to hold its breath. Clara leaned in as everyone clapped softly, and for the first time that day, she closed her eyes and made a wish. No one knew what it was. No one needed to. Beside her, Leo leaned close and whispered, "I hope it comes true." Clara looked at him, then at James, then at her glowing cake. She smiled, not the polite smile of a child being polite, but a deep, soul-lit smile. The kind that spoke of healing. Of feeling seen. Of something lost being found again. The candlelight shimmered in her eyes, reflecting a quiet, unspoken truth. Her wish already had. And at that table, between two strangers who had become something more, a forgotten birthday became a moment none of them would ever forget.